Yeah, let's confirm, let's start it.
We're live, Madam Chair.
We're now live.
We're live, Madam Chair, yes.
Thank you very much. Before I formally start the meeting, I confirm that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearing Regulations 2005, which allow councils to make their own arrangements for licensing subcommittees to hear matters in connection with premises licences. I will begin by introducing the subcommittee members and officers who will be present at this meeting. I'm the Chair, Councillor Polly Andrews, and to my left we have Councillor Dave Davis and Councillor Peter Hamlin. To my right we have the Legal Advisor, Lorna Lucas. The Clerk to the committee is Matthew Evans, and the technical support is Alfie Rees-Gliders. Other attendees will be introduced at relevant stages of the meeting. Please note the following points with regard to the conduct of this meeting. The Council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making a recording. The recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please remember what you say and do in this meeting has a global reach, and your words and actions should be chosen carefully. The chat facility has been switched off to ensure that attendees' contributions can be offered through the spoken voice and for the public record. Please ensure that all your mobile devices are switched to silent. If any remote attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection with a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of subcommittee members remains able to hear the proceedings and can be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate this in advance. Are there any questions about the procedures before we continue? Right, I will now proceed with the formal agenda of the meeting. Apologies for absence, we have none. Name substitutes, we have none. Any declarations of interest? No. We now move to the first substantive item on the agenda. Could I ask technical support to remove attendees to the waiting room? I think Mr. Bryce is in the waiting room, aren't you? Yes. The purpose is to consider an application for a grant of premises licence in respect of Ledbury Convenience Store, 23 High Street, Ledbury, HR8 1DS. In attendance for this application, we have in the room, on behalf of the Licensing Authority, Emma Bowell. Any remote attendees, I will go to confirm that you are able to hear me, and I will confirm in response that I can hear you. Where practicable, please have your video switched on so that you can be seen by members of the attendants in the public watching. Mr. Bryce, you're on behalf of the applicant. Can you hear and see us clearly?
Yes, I can hear and see you clearly.
Thank you very much. Right, we will start order of speakers. Mr. Emma for the Licensing Committee, and then Mr. Bryce on behalf of the applicant. Emma, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. So, as the Chair rightly said, we're here today to consider an application for a grant of a premise licence in respect of Ledbury Convenience Store. The recommendations are that the subcommittee determine the application with a view to promote the licensing objectives in the overall interest of the local community. They should give appropriate weight to steps that are appropriate to promote those licensing objectives, representations, including any supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued to local authorities under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and the Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025. And the reason for this is it ensures compliance with the Licensing Act 2003. There are a number of options open to the subcommittee today. One would be to grant the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule. 2 would be to grant the licence subject to modified conditions. 3, exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates. 4, refuse to specify in the licence a premises supervisor or refuse the application. The application for a grant of the premise licence has received relevant representation. It is therefore brought today before the subcommittee for determination. Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2020 to 2025 states, All representation must be relevant. For example, they must be about the likely effect of the grant of the application. This will follow paragraph 8.57 in the section 182 guidance. So the applicant today is Mehmet Ozer. The agent is Darren Bryce. We received the application on the 10th of July 23. Date of consultation starts on the 11th of July 23 and ended on the 8th of August 23, which is 28 days later. The application appendix 1 requests the following: sale and supply of alcohol, consumption off the premises, Monday to Sunday, 8 AM until 11 PM. 2 representations were received from the responsible authorities, trading standards and the local authority. The sets of conditions proposed have been accepted by the applicant, and these can be found at appendix 2. 1 relevant representation was received from a member of the public in line with the licensing objective, prevention of public nuisance, that the licensing authority accepted as being relevant, only on point 3, and that can be found at appendix 3. All other points in the representation cannot be considered under the licensing regime, and all parties who were advised of this. The premises has previously been licensed under the names of Black Pepper, Blue Orchid, which were both restaurants, from 2005 to 2021. And more recently, Sunrise Cafe from 21 until June 23. Records show the applicant was not linked to these premises. Any decision may have an impact on the local community. This report is in relation to a premise licence under the Licensing Act 2003, and as such, there are minimal environmental impacts for the council. There are a number of equality duties and legal implications that are set out in this report that your legal advisor could advise on further. There are likely to be any financial implications for the council as a licensing authority at this time. Schedule 5 of the Licensing Act 2003 gives a right of appeal to Magistrates Court within 21 days with the day on which the appellant was notified by the licensing authority of the decision appealed against. There is little risk associated with the decision at this time, as it allows the right of appeal to Magistrates Court. All responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire were consulted, and appendices 1 to 3 were found at the back of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. I'll now bring in Mr. Bryce, who is the applicant's agent. Mr. Bryce.
Good morning. I haven't really got too much to add for this one. It's a very straightforward application, this one. We've gone for what we think is reasonable hours in line with a very typical convenience store. We were more than happy to accept the 2 representations from the local authorities and trading standards, and my client is already progressing sort of steps to manage those conditions. And obviously the public representation came very late on in the consultation period, and normally we would try and reach out to any objectees to try and see if we can alleviate their concerns, but on this occasion it came in quite late, so we didn't really have much opportunity to do so. We're obviously only considering point 3 on the representations made, and what I find quite interesting is that during the 28-day consultation period, we didn't receive any representations from the immediate residents or occupiers, and I'm well aware of flats above. The applicant actually lives in one of the flats above the shop. So I'm from a noise point of view, I struggle to see how sort of public nuisance will be created. Client isn't going to be emptying internal bins or things like that during 10:30 at night. That's just not common sense. So there's going to be very little activity in and around the shop late at night as such. So I'm just trying to understand where the concern for sort of noise of residents when all local residents have the opportunity to make representation and none were received. I've looked at the home address of the objectee, and it's just under a mile away. So I wouldn't say it inconveniences the individual himself. So I'm struggling to sort of give you much more really than the client is, looking to conduct his business appropriately and within all levels of application and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr.
No
Bright. Members of the committee, have you any questions you wish to ask? Councillor Hamblin?
Mr. Bryce, can you just enlarge on the accommodation above and around the shop? You say the applicant lives in one of the flats above. Are there several other flats, and are there flats in the buildings either side? Just a little bit more filling in on that, please.
Absolutely. So yes, the applicant and his partner live directly above the proposed location. I'm aware of several flats. I don't have the exact numbers to hand, I'm afraid, but I believe each premises does have accommodation above. Some has been converted into storerooms and things like that, and others are livable accommodation.
Thank you. But just to confirm, during the consultation period, you had no comments from any of the residents immediately around the shop?
None that I've been made aware of, no.
Right, thank you very much.
Let's go. Please, Chair. One question I did have, and that was for the opening hours. In the remark on item 3, it mentions extended hours compared to previous occupation or previous business use when it was a restaurant. I assume the restaurant would have operated in a similar type of hour frame?
They were identical times, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No other questions from the committee?
No.
Right, well, thank you, Mr. Bryce. We will now adjourn to discuss your application. If you'd like to come back in 10 minutes.
No problem.
Right, thank you. If you could cease the live stream. Thank you.
Live again, Madam Chair.
Right, thank. Can you hear me, Mr. Bryce?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. The subcommittee's decision is to grant the application as applied for, with the additional conditions which were put forward by the trading standards and the local authority and agreed by the applicant. The subcommittee has considered the written representation from a member of the public, in particular item 3, and the information presented to the subcommittee. The subcommittee considered that the application, with the addition of the above mentioned conditions, will promote the licensing objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.